This is the second video on adding and subtracting rational expressions where you have unlike fractions. That's going to be fractions where you do not have a common denominator. This one has that little trick happening, so I wanted to make sure I had a video on this. In order to add or subtract fractions, you need a common denominator. This denominator is x minus 3, and over here we have a 3 minus x. So right now they look almost the same, but they're not quite the same. So anytime we've come across examples like this, we're going to remember that little trick where we can factor a -1 out of one of those. So for me, I always pick the one that looks a little bit weird. To me, that's going to be this 3 minus x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor a -1 out of that. Now remember, when you factor a -1 out, it is going to change the signs of the 3 and this negative x. This will become a -3, and this will become a positive x. When those signs change, you can go ahead and rewrite that order so you can basically switch them to x minus 3. Here's my positive 3, or positive x, -3. Alright, so let's just rewrite the problem so we can see where we're at. We have 1 over x minus 3 minus 5. And then all that we did was we factored that denominator. So now here is our denominator. So do we have a common denominator? No, we don't, but they do have something in common now that we factored out the -1. You can see they both have the x minus 3. The fraction on the left, however, is missing that -1. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and multiply this denominator on the left by a -1, but you do want to make sure you multiply the top by a -1. And now we do have the common denominator. So we have a -1 over -1 x minus 3 minus a 5 over that -1 x minus 3. So your denominators are the same, which means that's going to stay as a -1 x minus 3. And then what we'll do is we'll take the numerators, this -1, and we're going to subtract a 5 from it. -1 minus 5 is -6. So we've subtracted our two fractions. Now you just want to look to see if there's any reducing we might be able to do. The only thing, you can't do any more factoring, so from here the only thing we'd be able to do is take a look at this -6 over a -1. If you have a -6 divided by a -1, it just ends up as a positive 6. These both end up positive. So in the end, we have a positive 6 over, now that positive 1 isn't necessary to write in there anymore because it's just 1 times the x minus 3. So we have a 6 over x minus 3. And then again, we do not want to cancel the 6 with the 3 because this 3 is attached to the x with this negative sign, or the subtraction. Any plus or minus signs keep your terms together, and you can't cancel them away separately.